So we are going to do a small talk on this pests of wheat, of winter wheat. The first talk is based on a work conducted by Dr. Holly Davis at Kansas State University. She did her PhD studying this pest, and she's providing some good information for us. So one of the things that she tried to evaluate is why in Kansas, at least, they have high peak populations in later years, and also what's the life cycle of this insect, because in the past it was believed that this insect had two big peak populations. One was in the spring and the other was late in the season. So um, so in Kansas, as I mentioned before, around the 1990s, they have frequently increases of populations, and this continued up until 2014. And you can see this is a picture from her, where you can see the wheat being affected by this insect. So this insect feeds lay the eggs on these plants, and then the larvae start to develop internally. So for this study, she put some pheromone trapping, and as you can see here in this picture, these pheromone lures trap for male Haitian flies, and they fall into a sticky card. And what she found is that in these 4-year studies, since 2009 to 2012, and conducting evaluating these sticky cards, she found that there was not a real peak population during this season. So it seems that these Haitian flies are present through the spring and the summer, so there's not a defined peak population. And in our case, maybe that's something similar. So there's not a peak population here in Kentucky, but you can see that the population is well spread, especially during the summer. Now, for the fall, she compared some of these historic records of Haitian fly on the pheromone lure traps. And she found that in different counties where she sampled in 2010, that these captures on the sticky traps were late compared to the historic prior flea date. So for example, in North Smith, the historic flea date fly is 29 September, but she found Haitian flies up until November, and so on. You can see there that these Haitian flies, it seems that they're flying to later periods of the time of the year now. And probably this is because, at least here in Kentucky, also we're having some moderate winter seasons. And probably that's the case in Kansas. So in conclusion, so the Haitian fly, I believe so, at least for Kentucky, we still have the fly-free date that most of the farmers are using, and that's probably the reason we are not having issues with this insect. Also, in addition, we have some cultivars that are resistant, and probably that's one of the most important tools. In addition to that, for the management of these pests, the control of volunteer wheat, it's very important because it breaks the cycle of this pest. So if somebody detects if somebody think about seed treatment, from North Carolina, there were some reports that these seed treatments for wheat and to control the Haitian fly only work when they are at the high labor rates for all these imidacloprid, thiamethoxam, and so on, all the neonicotinoids. Also, if there's some detection of Haitian fly, pyrethroids apply very early during the season, just after emergency, when they have when the wheat has 2 or 3 leaves, they are very effective to control this pest. Now, this year, I'm working also on wireworms, and this is a pest that is very complex because it has a very complex life cycle. So the immature forms are called wireworms because they have kind of this elongated larvae. In this case, for example, that's maybe 2.5 centimeters. And this affects if they feed on the root system, they live under the ground. As I mentioned, they are very cryptic because most of the time they live under the ground. And they are complex because the life cycle can last up to 6 years. So, and also we have, yes?
Raul, you've got a question back on Hessian fly. Let's go ahead and get it addressed now. So Terry Mashburn says, would it be possible to find Hessian fly in the last 3 weeks? He thought he might have saw a field that thinks he saw a field covered up with it. He thinks it was Hessian fly.
So what was the question? Sorry for that.
Whether or not you can see Hessian fly now.
You can see it. So I mean, I showed that in the presentation. At least in Kansas, you can see the Hessian fly. So it's
okay.
So you see here, this is the captures of Hessian fly from March 27 to July 15. So they are not probably affecting wheat because they're too late in the season, but they are on the grasses. So they're present right now. So, and one more thing here is during the 5 years that I'm here in Kentucky, I haven't heard reports of Hessian fly outbreaks in Kentucky. Okay. Again, so going back to the wireworms, the life cycle is very complicated. The adult forms, the click beetles, they can live up to 1 year. So during that period, they are laying a lot of eggs. And also, the immature forms, the larval forms, can live underground from 2 to 6 years. So that's very hard to study, especially if you conduct a PhD. That's a 4-year program. So basically, you are not going to even complete 1 generation of these insects. And when it appears, maybe there is some potential to use insecticides to control this pest. So I haven't seen this kind of losses here in Kentucky, but it means there are reports in Idaho, in Washington. This is a picture of Idaho, where it shows that how damaging this pest can be. And in Kentucky, this year, I'm conducting this test in small plot replicate tests, where I'm trying to collect information on this insect. We are using different kinds of insecticides. I have 8 treatments. I only know 2 of those treatments. And so we are doing some baiting to capture the larvae. So we are making a hole in the ground, and then we're putting a bait, and this bait has a wheat that's soaked, and then they have some oat and honey. So the CO2 that when this wheat is emerging, it attracts this larvae. So then we cover, and then we left it for 2 weeks. So of these 32 plots that we have in the field, and we were sampling from March 16 to May 5th, every 2 weeks, we have only found 4 of these wireworms. So it seems that they are not present in great numbers, at least in this field. However, I mean, last week we were checking some Texas traps. So these traps are used to monitor moths, where we have a pheromone bait, and then the moths can fly over here, they enter over here, and then they cannot go out. But within these Texas traps, we were able to capture an average of 15 click beetles on this trap, in these setups. So this was a kind of eventual finding. I haven't seen any of these reports in other studies, but they're here, they are flying. So on some of these species actually affect very heavily corn and soybeans, and we are going to study this coming season, the presence of these insects. So on wheat, again, this year I'm conducting a study to see the control and the management of aphids. So this is being conducted in a large plot study where I planted treated and untreated seeds, as you can see in this field. And we have an area that's probably 600 feet, and we have maybe 100 feet wide. And we have 2 planting dates, early October, and it's the opposite there, so sorry about that. It's early October, October 1, and late October, October 18. So we did this, and on that field, I'm using only scouting and applying insecticide when it's required. So we are using 2 pyrethroids, and this is continuing from last year. We are using Baythroid and Warrior at the highest rate of these products. And what we found in this field so far is that we have populations of 2 main species, the bird cherry oat aphid and the English cereal aphids. They are present in kind of this kind of ranges, 65 to 75% of the bird cherry oat, but the English cereal aphids are present also. These 2 species are typically vectors of the barley yellow dwarf viruses. So both of them. So these are the results. Here you see the number of aphids collected on a 1-foot row. So this is the counts just before spraying. So we were counting these aphids since March, and the counts on March were very low, so really low. So as you can see here, the pre-count on 9 April, so we have higher numbers. The threshold is around 9 aphids per length of row, 1 feet of length of rows. And then you can see that there is high populations on the late planting. However, we did a spray on 11 April. So these are the results for that one. So you can see that when we apply Warrior or Baythroid, independent of whatever we are using, any of these pyrethroids, they were effectively controlling these aphids. So you can see compared to the control, in all cases, 3 days, 6 days, that means that's a 23, 16 days after the spray, still these products are controlling the pest. So with this, we can conclude that pyrethroid insecticides probably can be used effectively to control these aphids. It's probably in our case, there is no resistance to these insecticides, but also what I'm doing is I'm trying to promote the use of these insecticides within insecticide pest management programs. This means we need to scout for pests, and we need to try to see if they are above the economic threshold levels. So all this is my presentation today, and just want to hopefully everybody's wanting to do this in the future. So thank you. Any questions? Hello.
So Raul, I see the question that we discussed about the Hessian fly. I see another question from Tom, kind of going back to the sustainability. It looks like we've got some conversation going with that. We may, Tom, we may come back to that. I think we tried to budget a little bit of time in here to have some of that open discussion. So we can circle back to that at some point.
On sustainability, I want to tell you that means I have a couple of defenses these 2 years for student defenses, and I always ask the students about sustainability, and none of them relate sustainability to the economic input for the growers. So that's very important in that. So we shouldn't not only consider the environmental issues for this one, but we need to consider how it affects the income of the farmers.
Yeah, the economics is often the one leg that gets forgotten when sustainability